In 4.6, we're looking at this standard form, and we're going to analyze and look at what we can get for information from this type of a form. So first thing we got to get started, we're going to be doing lots of factoring in this lesson, so let's practice it up right now. All right, factor each trinomial, x squared plus 5x plus 6. So we got a sum is the middle term, 5. Product is, there's a 1 in front, 1 times 6, product is 6. What two numbers multiply to 6? Add to 5. We've got our factors of 2 and 3. So because this is a basic one with a 1x squared, again, we're just jumping straight to the answer, x plus 2 times x plus 3. Let's go to the next one. Again, sum is the middle term, 7. Product is the 1 times the negative 8, negative 8. Two numbers that multiply to negative 8 and add to 7. We've got negative 1 and positive 8. And again, it's a basic, simple one, so we can just jump straight to the answer. X minus 1, x plus 8. All right, now we get to the more difficult. I'm going to go through the decomposition method. There are other methods of factoring, but I'm going to focus on decomposition here. Our sum, again, is that middle term, the negative 9. Our product, the 2 times the negative 5, which gives us negative 10. We're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 10 and add to negative 9. And that's going to be negative 10 and 1. Now this time, we're not going to be able to jump straight to the answer. We're going to bring down our 2x squared. We're going to bring down our negative 5. We're decomposing that middle term into the negative 10x plus 1x. Again, I always recommend put the negative 1 first if you have that option. And that's the negative 10 I'm talking about. Now, underline the first two, underline the second two. We're going to factor by grouping. So we can factor out of the first two. We can take out a 2 and an x. Leaves us with x minus 5. Got to take something out of the next ones. Well, the only GCF we've got there is a 1. X minus 5. Good. In the brackets, exactly the same thing. So we've got 2x plus 1 and x minus 5. Last one, sum, negative 9. Whoa, wait a minute. Let's stop the boat right there. We got to look, first of all, is there a GCF? In this case, there is. So always, first step of factoring, GCF. Don't forget about it. I can pull out a GCF of 3. Leaves me with x squared minus 3x minus 10. Now I'm going to do my sum product factoring. Hey, we've got a 1x squared. Makes this easier. Sum of negative 3, product of negative 10. Two numbers that multiply to negative 10. Add to negative 3. That's going to be negative 5 and 2. So we get our final answer, 3 bracket x minus 5, x plus 2. Didn't need to use decomposition. Now this next one, I'm not going to do the whole thing because that's the whole point of this lesson. I'm going to do lots of these questions. But all that you can tell off of this equation without actually graphing it, the things that you're going to be able to tell, Y-intercept. You're going to be able to factor it. And just like we did in chapter 3, if we factor it, equate it to 0, y equals 0. Then you're going to be able to find your X-intercepts. Okay. Third thing we could do, we could complete the square. And then we'll be able to find the vertex. So that's what we're going to be focusing on in this lesson. Just to remind you of some of the things, again, like I just said, if we've got it in this form, the C value is our Y-intercept. That's because when we make x 0, the first two terms go to 0. Now the big connection that needs to be made here is talking about the factored form. When we go to factored form, we've got X-intercepts that we're able to find. But they're the additive inverses of our signs in here, because we're going to make the y equals 0, as you're going to see as we go through this lesson. Here's one really cool thing about x-intercepts and parabolas. Parabolas are symmetrical. They're symmetrical right through the vertex. That means from the vertex, if they're symmetrical, our x-intercepts are going to be the same distance away from the axes of symmetry. So we can find the average, the mean of the two x-intercepts. How do we find a mean? Add them up and divide by 2. That's going to tell us the axes of symmetry, or the x-coordinate of the vertex. Our axes of symmetry then is x equals the average of the two x-intercepts. So when we know the x-coordinate, all we got to do is use substitution to find the y-coordinate. So we're just going to take the x and find the y-coordinate by substituting the x-coordinate that we got for the axis of symmetry there into the equation. All right, let's identify the intercepts and axes of symmetry for this graph. Hey, they've got decimals. If they start and they give you decimals, we can work with decimals all the way through. Don't need to change them into fractions. So here we go. Let's get started. So in order to find our intercepts, we could factor, or we could use quadratic formula, or we could complete the square. Of course, we could also use the graph, but we're looking at doing it algebraically here. I'm going to start with factoring to see if that's possible. But we've got decimals. Hey, let's do a quick check. Can I factor out the negative 2.5 out of the whole thing and see if I get something that's easily factorable? Negative 7.5 divided by negative 2.5. Oh, yeah. Oh, so we've got, first of all, x squared. Then we're going to get plus, because I negative divided by negative, and that gives me 3x. 10 divided by negative 2.5, that's going to change it to negative, and it's going to be 4. Oh, that looks like it's possible to factor. So sum equals 3, product equals negative 4. Two numbers that multiplied with negative 4 add to 3. Those are going to be 4 and negative 1. So we've got it factored now. Y equals negative 2.5, bracket x plus 4, x minus 1. Now that we got it factored, let's look at the x-intercepts. X-intercepts are when y equals 0. Well, let's put 0 in. 0 equals negative 2.5 times x plus 4 times x minus 1. If I divide over that negative 2.5, it's still going to be equal 0. So the only thing I really have to be concerned with is the two different factors. Well, that means then that either x plus 4 equals 0 or x minus 1 equals 0. Oh, this is chapter 3. We did this. We found the x-intercepts. We just called them zeros back then. So we've got x equals negative 4 or x equals 1. There's my two x-intercepts. Now the next one, y-intercept. Y-intercept is when x equals 0. Well, I could either use the factored form, or I could go back to the original standard form. I'm going to use the standard form there. So y equals negative 2.5, 0 squared, minus 7.5 times 0, plus 10. Oh, wait a minute. I could have just picked it straight off. We remember that that constant of this form is the y-intercept. Now, axes of symmetry. Let's remember, axes of symmetry is halfway in between the two x-intercepts. So we need to find the average. I've got my x-intercept of negative 4. I've got my x-intercept of 1. Let's add them together, divide by 2. Negative 4 plus 1 divided by 2. Find the average of those two, halfway in between. That gives me negative 3 over 2. Because they gave us decimals to begin with, I can use it as a decimal as well, or as negative 3 halves. Last thing, I need the coordinates of the vertex. I have my x coordinate of the vertex. That came from the axis of symmetry. In order to find your y coordinate of the vertex, we're going to plug this into the original equation, original function. So take it, and wherever you see the x, put negative 1.5. Y equals negative 2.5 times negative 1.5 squared minus 7.5 times negative 1.5 plus 10. Punch it into your calculator as you see it, and it's going to pop out your y coordinate 15.625. So vertex is equal to the negative 1.5, the x coordinate. I just found that right here. And the y coordinate. 15.625. Done deal. All right, in order to sketch a graph now, the things that we need are going to be x-intercepts, y-intercepts, and vertex. And also direction of opening is a good thing. If you can hit those 4 things, you're going to be able to sketch any of these graphs. So let's start with direction of opening. The a value, that's negative. So it's going to open to the negatives, opening down. Good. Next thing, I need to find my y-intercept. That's the next easy one. Oh, I know where that is. That's sitting right here. I just pop that in there. Negative 14. Good. Now we've got to find the x-intercepts. X-intercepts, we're going to find that by factoring, or quadratic formula, or completing the square, whichever one you want to do. Well, if I try to factor this, it's not factorable. Okay, well, then let's try to use quadratic formula. See what that does. But before I even go through the whole process of quadratic formula, I'm going to first look and see, does it even have any x-intercepts? We need to deal with the discriminant. Remind you of what that is. That's the b squared minus 4ac. Let's see what value we get there. If we get a negative value, it's got no x-intercepts because you'd be taking the square root of a negative number. Let's plug her in. There's my a, there's my b, there's my c. So we've got 10 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 14. That gives us negative 12. Ooh, no x-intercepts. Okay. So in order to find the vertex, I can't do the halfway in between the 2 x-intercepts if there are no x-intercepts. Only thing left, got to complete the square. So in order to find vertex, we got to complete the square. Let's do it. So y equals, we're going to bracket off the first 2. Factor out the negative 2. X squared minus 5x plus something minus something minus 14. Let's figure out those somethings. That is the negative 5 divided by 2 squared. Okay, well, gives us 25 over 4. 25 over 4 in, 25 over 4 out. Gotta remember to kick out the negative 1 by multiplying in the negative 2. Y equals negative 2. I'm going to factor right off the bat. I know that that's going to factor into x minus, right before I squared it, 5 over 2 squared. Now I've got negative 2 times negative 25 over 4. That's going to give me negative 25 over 2. Minus 14. I need a common denominator, so I'm going to make it over 2 right off the bat. 14, hey, that's 28 over 2. Y equals negative 2 bracket x minus 5 over 2 squared minus, add those up together. That gives me 53 over 2. Hey, if it helps out, just to look at where those are. Wait a minute. None of you said I made a mistake. That's positive. Negative times a negative. That ain't no 53. Huh. That's actually negative 3 over 2. Ah, that makes a little more sense. So my vertex is at positive 5 over 2, comma, negative 3 over 2. Just to help you to be able to visualize where that is, that's at negative 2.5, oh sorry, positive 2.5 and negative 1.5 in the decimal form, just so we can visualize it. Let's sketch it up using all of what we just came up with. Vertex, first step, positive 2.5 and negative 1.5. So there's my vertex. 0.5, comma, negative 1.5. No x-intercepts, but there is a y-intercept. That y-intercept was negative 14. And I knew it was opening down right from the get-go. There we go. We've got it sketched. Arrows on the end because it goes on forever. All right, same process for the second one. It's opening, because it's a positive a value, it's opening up. Y-intercept. Y-intercept is 5. X-intercept. Let's check if this one's factorable. If it's factorable, the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac, is going to be a perfect square. Let's check it out. So 12 squared minus 4 times 4 times 5. That gives me, when I plug it through, ooh, 64. That's a perfect square. That means this is factorable. So we're going to factor it. Okay. Sum equals 12. Product equals 4 times 5. Okay. And just for time's sake, you're going to get practice factoring on your own when you do your questions. I'm just going to give you the factored form. The factored form is y equals bracket 2x plus 5 times 2x plus 1. If you want to pause it and make sure you get that, do it. So that means to find your x-intercepts, the y equals 0. So either 2x plus 5 equals 0, 2x equals negative 5, x equals negative 5 over 2, which is negative 2.5, just to help you to visualize when you're plotting it. Or 2x plus 1 equals 0, 2x equals negative 1, x is equal to negative 1/2. Oh, that's negative. Oops. X, there we go, equals negative 0.5. There's my two x-intercepts. Last thing, we need to find our vertex. Complete the square. Or go halfway in between the two x-intercepts. Do whichever one of the two you prefer. Hey, I did completing the square in A. B, I'm going to do halfway in between. X-coordinate of the vertex is going to be negative 2.5 plus negative 0.5 divided by 2. Average of the two x-intercepts. Which gives me negative 1.5. Now that I have the x-coordinate, let's find the y-coordinate. Plug in the x back into the original. Y equals 4x squared plus 12x plus 5. Wherever you see an x, put negative 1.5. There it is. Squared plus 12 times negative 1.5 plus 5. Punch that into your calculator as you see it, and it pops out negative 4. My vertex is negative 1.5, comma, negative 4. Let's bring it all together and sketch this graph. Vertex, negative 1.5, negative 4. Let's just throw it there. X-intercepts. The two X-intercepts were, where are they? Negative 2.5 and negative 0.5. Label them off. And my Y-intercept, well, way up at the top, 5. Connect all of my dots. It's symmetrical on both sides, perfectly. And there, put some arrows on the ends. Done deal. Now we need to get the equation of a graph given some information. You might be given a graph and said, hey, do this. Or you might be given information like this. If you're given a graph, look for these key things. Find the zeros, the x-intercepts. Find a point, an x and y point. And let's work it through. Y equals, in factored form, it's going to have some a value. Maybe that's 1, maybe it's something else. We'll have to work it through and find out. Multiplied by x minus the first x-intercept and the second x-intercept. Let's plug those in. So y equals a bracket x minus a negative 4, makes it a positive 4, and x minus 2. We've got to find that a value. We're going to do the exact same thing as we did in 4.4. Plug in the point x comma y. So negative 60 equals a bracket 6 plus 4 times 6 minus 2. 6 plus 4, 10. 6 minus 2, 4. That's 40. Negative 60 equals 40a. Divide the 40 over, and then take it to lowest terms. And we've got our a value, which is going to be negative 1.5, or better yet, negative 3 over 2. I'm going to keep it as the fraction form. Plug her in. Y equals negative 3 over 2 bracket x plus 4, x minus 2. That's the factored form. In order to get it into our standard form, we're just going to expand that. Which gives us y equals negative 3 over 2 bracket x squared plus 2x minus 8. Then we're going to distribute in that part, leaving us with y equals negative 3 over 2 x squared plus, minus 3x plus 12. Done. I know, everyone's favorite. We got the problem solving. Parabolic arch on the doorway. Let's draw it. Looks like this. The base of the doorway is 2 meters apart. At a point 0.5 meters from one side, doesn't matter which side, it's symmetrical. Let's just go 0.5 meters. That height is going to be 3 meters. So we've got to figure out, where do we want to put our origin? I'm going to recommend in this one just to throw it right there. Let's plop it right there at that point. So that's going to give me one x-intercept at 0, 0. That's also going to give me another x-intercept 2 meters away at 2, 0. Halfway in between is 1, something. I also know this point right here. That point was 0.5, 3. Start with your factored form. Fill in your 2 x-intercepts. x minus 0 and x minus 2. Oh, let's clean that up. That's a times x minus 2. Let's use our point x comma y and plug it in. So we now have 3 equals a times 0.5 times 0.5 minus 2. Or in other words, 3 equals negative 0.75a. Divide over the negative 0.75. Oops. And that gives us the a value of negative 4. Yeah, we knew it needed to be negative. It's opening down. Equation, therefore, is y equals negative 4x times x minus 2. Box that in. Last thing, could something that's 3.5 meters high go through that door? What they're really asking you is, how tall is this section right here? What's the y coordinate? Hey, we already got the x coordinate. Let's just plug it in, solve for the y. So y equals, this is part B, y equals negative 4 times 1 minus 2. Y equals 4. So our maximum height is 4 meters. Can something 3.5 fit through there? Yeah. Yes. It is high enough to get something 3.5 meters through it. Bring your information together, discuss the ideas. We'll talk about those in class. Have a good one. See you in class.